I don't even know if it's because of what I look like now, because I'm still not looking how I want to look, if that
Okay.
makes sense. But I think what's given me confidence through losing weight is achieving things that I just wouldn't have, I had zero self-belief before I started, and very little confidence in myself.
Losing weight isn't easy, and some days we can feel like we need some extra help. Welcome to the Weight Loss Warrior podcast, the show where we share inspiring real-life success stories from normal, everyday people like you and I. Listen to how each of our guests managed to overcome their personal challenges to lose the weight they wanted, as they talk about the secrets to their success and give great advice that you can benefit from. Become part of our tribe and use the Weight Loss Warrior podcast as your source of motivation and support to help you on your weight loss transformation. And now, your host and friend, Carl Radley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Weight Loss Warrior podcast. I'm Carl, your host, and it's a pleasure to have you with us. For anyone who's listening to this on the podcast, I'm actually recording with video now, so you can hop onto YouTube and actually watch the episode as well as listen to it. So sometimes for people, if you're out going for a walk or you're working, listening on the podcast is fantastic, and that won't change. But it's just to let you know that given some of the feedback I received on some recent episodes that were recorded, you can now watch Weight Loss Warrior as well. I'm joined today by a very special guest from Kent in the UK. Her name's Liv, and she's lost an incredible 8 stone as part of her journey so far. Liv, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Really well,
Yeah.
thank you. Kids have just gone back to school, so it's getting back into the routine now.
Finally.
I won't lie, doing the recording with camera on is a whole new dynamic for me. So this is something that I'm just getting used to, and I have to be quite conscious, not to like pick my nose, not like pick my nose, but I'm being watched now. And so obviously I can't stand there reading like my notes like this, and there's certain stuff that I can't do. So if you see me trying to look for a mosquito or something, it's because we're still getting them here in Barcelona and they're a nightmare. But anyway, this isn't about my issues of camera filming and getting over myself there. This is about you and your journey. So Liv, like I said, you've lost a great amount of weight. I know that today you're not at the end of the journey that you've set out on. So I'd absolutely love to hear about, where you've come from in terms of starting your journey, how that's progressed, and also look at your future goals as well, and find out a bit more about what's coming up for you in the near future and beyond. Because obviously losing weight is a lifestyle change. It's something that we don't just do for a temporary amount of time if you want to make it sustainable. And the other thing I absolutely love as well is that you've done this for the most part with calorie counting. And this is how I lost weight last year. I still track my calories on a daily basis. And I think it's one of the healthiest and most sustainable ways of actually losing weight and controlling your weight, not necessarily just to lose weight, but also for people who want to gain weight, people who want to stay the same weight. It's, for me, quite important to know the value of the food that you're putting into your body and what your body requires to go up, to go down, or to stay the same. So before we get into that, I've spoken enough. I'm going to hand over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Liv?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Liv. I'm 27. I'm from Kent. I grew up on a small island called the Isle of Sheppey, and I'm still here now. Live with my boyfriend. We're renting still because you know what that's like at the moment. But we live with our 2 pets. I've got a little cat called Betty, who's probably around here somewhere. And then our little rescue dog, Jimmy, who does feature on my Instagram page sometimes as well, as you know. But yeah, that's about it. That's all the basics anyway.
Okay, fantastic. And I have to say, Jimmy is absolutely adorable, and he's a lovely dog. And so if we'll obviously share your Instagram details at the end of the episode, but if for nothing else, follow Liv on Instagram just to see Jimmy, because he's awesome. I don't think I've seen Betty before, actually, so maybe she'll make an appearance on this episode, who knows. But as somebody who's got cats and a dog as well, love animals, so it's very nice to share that.
Me too.
In terms of, there's one more thing as well, speaking of animals, we love most animals, don't we, Liv? But there's one creature that we're not a fan of, and this is actually the reason I mention it, because this is how we began speaking. When I reached out to Liv to say, hey, I'd absolutely love to have you on the podcast, I saw that she'd mentioned she doesn't like ostriches. And to be honest with you, neither do I. And I've got a good reason for it, which I'll share quickly. We were at an animal park one day, and I was trying to take this lovely photo of an ostrich. Because although I don't know if it's for beady eyes, but there's something curious about them. For me, they kind of look like dinosaurs. I don't know if that's something you think. They kind of got like this really prehistoric dinosaur-looking face, and the way their movements are very jagged. And now I've realised on camera I can actually do things like impressions of dinosaurs. So that's something else now that the podcast can get into. But I was trying to take this photo of an ostrich, and as I was taking it, it snatched the phone out of my hand, and the phone fell in. It was a brand new phone. Well, I'd had it maybe 2 weeks, and it fell in all this mud. And since that day, I've kind of had a thing against ostriches. So, I'm sure there's some nice ones out there. But you don't like them either.
No, I don't even think there's a nice one. I can't imagine it.
You've never met a nice ostrich?
I've never met a nice one. No, they're just... It's the way they move, the fact that their body's so big but their head's so small, and that they're just birds but giant. I just... No.
And they look grumpy as well. They always look like angry. But then again, saying that, if you've ever seen the size of an ostrich egg, I think I'd be pretty angry if I'd popped that out myself. But,
anyway, fair play.
We'll leave the nature talks to David Attenborough, and we'll move on with the podcast. So your journey, as I said, I mentioned before, you've lost over 8 stone, and having looked at your backstory and Instagram, having read it, things you've said yourself, you were quite an unhappy place before you decided to start losing weight. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey of gaining weight and up until the point where you decided to make a change?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I was always a big kid. Like I've always been big. I've never been one of those people that, you hear about people who are so thin and then they get to sort of 20, 22 and then it starts slowly coming on. It was never like that for me. I was always just a bigger kid.
Okay.
And all through teenage years, that was, kids are horrible. So that was quite rough. But then I think as I got to, it probably was about 18, 19 for me. First of all, I learned how to drive. So then you have all of these fast food places at your fingertips. And I also fell in love with my boyfriend I'm still with now. So I think, that happy relationship weight, that just piled on. He loves food as well. So I think it just came from there. But you don't even notice it at the time because it happens so gradually, and it happened, I would say over a number of years. And then it got to a place where, it was stopping me being able to do things that I wanted to do. It was just restricting, just things that smaller people probably would never think about, like going to a theme park, like Thorpe Park is like an hour down the road from us. Going on rides, things like that, going to a restaurant, you're thinking, what are the chairs going to be like? When you're that big, you're thinking of things like that. And the cinema, I'm quite into fashion and clothes and things like that, which as a plus size person is just near on impossible. You wear, especially at the size I was, you wear what you can wear and not what you actually want to wear and feel like represents who you are inside. So I think it just got to a point there where I was really miserable. And I was trying to plod along and think, no, I'm okay. I think I'd accepted in myself, this is just how life is going to be for me. So yeah, it was kind of a place of, God, like, this is just ridiculous. But it took me a long time to realise that. But yeah, that's how it all kind of...
What age were you when you decided that you were going to make a change? Because you said obviously going through teenage years, going through school, you struggled, and I'm guessing there was some bullying there as well. We're listening to what you said, kids can be hard, and I mean, growing up in the UK, high school, you can be the most normal person. And again, for anyone who's not looking, I'm putting the air brackets up, or air commas, whatever they're called. But with that, you could be you could be popular, but then be bullied for the most ridiculous thing. You could be unpopular and bullied for something significant, insignificant. Children will latch onto something once they realise it bothers you, and they will
100%.
hammer you for it. And so
Yeah.
when it's something like the colour shoes you wear, or, you know, colour trainers you wear, which I've seen, and, you know, kids in my tutor group were bullied for because of what they wore, or the way their hair was cut, because they had spots, just so many things. But literally you show that kind of, they realise it gets to you, and that's almost opening a door for them to continue doing it. But something as, I'll say, impacting as being judged and bullied because of your weight, I think carries a lot more hurt than, say, the colour shoes you're wearing, because ultimately you can go home, you can take your shoes off, you can get a new pair of shoes, but it's kind of attacking the person that you are, but not even really the person you are, a part of the person that you are, because people
100%.
don't really look beyond the physical appearance a lot of the time, or spend time to get to know the person. And there are some lovely people out there, don't get me wrong, not everyone's like that, but I think that it can be difficult, especially during teenage years. And this is coming from my experiences as well. You know, I was kind of lucky, but I didn't really get bullied. I was very much in the middle, in terms of, I had friends in the cool group, I had friends whose life were made miserable by bullies, but I just tried to be nice to everyone. I mean, that way, I feel like, you know, it kind of was reciprocated. But so how old were you? Sorry, Liv, I did ask you a question at the beginning of that.
So I must have been, I think I was 24 when I started.
Okay.
And I think the reason why it kind of was so much later is because I did attempt it a good few times before that. But it was just, my head wasn't in it. I think, going back with what you're saying about school, I don't want to pretend like I was horrifically bullied, because it wasn't bad, and I did have friends. It was just a case of, there's always that one thing, and like you say, it's not something that you can just go and change overnight, like shoes or whatever it is. And it was, I did have friends, but it was just that thing that I couldn't be my full self, and I felt like I couldn't be as fully confident as I wanted to be, because what if they then, you know, sometimes when kids are confident, the other kids will see and think, oh, she's a bit cocky or whatever it is, and will then try and pinpoint their insecurities to use against them. So it was like I always had a fear of that. So I thought, I'll just not put myself out there so much, because then I won't have that worry of, oh, what if they come back at me and think, and, you know, dig at my insecurity, which it was a massive insecurity of mine. So
Of course.
I think that was a big part of my school life.
I think as well, just before you go on, because you've raised a really important point there, I think that it's not always just the fear of being bullied, but the fear of judgment. No, sorry, it's not actually the act of being bullied as such, but it's the fear of judgment. And like you said, if you put yourself out there, the judgment that may came back to you, or not having that confidence to do something just in case somebody says something to you. So you kind of cocoon yourself and put up a shield, or just hide away, because and that can be really difficult as well, because of the fact that this person that you're, you know, just bursting to be, and all of these conversations you'd like to have, things you'd like to put yourself forward for, but you don't, just because of that fear of judgment, because you don't consider yourself worthy to do it because of how people might react. And that's, I think, such a normal emotion and behavior for teenagers anyway, because you're on this journey of self-discovery and you want to just conform. So anything stepping outside of a comfort zone is kind of putting yourself out there at risk.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, that has an impact on us as young adults and into adulthood, because a lot of those fears that we carry and limiting self-beliefs that we develop at a young age take us through into adulthood, which can work against us. And I would imagine at some level, Liv, you're probably still working through some of those. And
yeah, I would say so. I mean, it is one thing that weight loss has brought me, is a lot more confidence. And I don't even know if it's because of what I look like now, because I'm still not looking how I want to look, if that makes sense. But I think what's given me confidence through losing weight is achieving things that I just wouldn't have, you know, I had zero self-belief before I started. and very little confidence in myself. So to see this achievement that I've made so far, and even things like, 16-year-old me would have never have stepped into a gym, because it's like, if anyone's going to judge you for your weight, or this is what I thought, if anyone's going to judge you for your weight, it will be people inside of a gym. So avoid at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And now the fact that I can go, and I'll go there, a few times a week, and I feel comfortable as anything, things like that, I'm like, that's what gives me confidence, is that I've achieved things like that. Not so much the way that I look, but yeah, it's what I've achieved so far, I think, is where that's come
amazing.
from.
That's amazing. And I think it's very, very true that the only way really to overcome these self-limiting beliefs is to really overcome them and prove yourself that you can do these things and understand. So for you then, Liv, when you made that decision at like 24 years old, was there one particular moment that springs to mind, or one particular thing? You're nodding there, so I'm guessing there was something that happened. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was always in the back of my mind for a long time, and it was things like I was saying about just everyday limitations and not being able to live like a 20-something, with going to restaurants, cinemas, theme parks, whatever it was, holidays, with airplane seats, things like that. So many things you wouldn't think of. So things like that was causing it to be in the back of my mind a lot. But then it was towards the end of 2020, I started getting really bad pains in my stomach and round to my back. And I had it a few times, like it would last for a couple of hours, and it was really painful episodes. It would make me be sick, and I was just thinking, what the hell is this? And I spoke to my mum about it, and she said, it sounds like gallstones. My mum had gallstones when she had my older sister. I should probably explain for anyone that doesn't know what gallstones are.
Please.
It's so you have your gallbladder that sits just the upper right side of your abdomen, and if it's functioning normally, it has acid in there. So then when you eat and the food's in your stomach, the acid will then squirt out into your stomach, and it helps to break down and digest your food to then move on to wherever it's going next. If you have gallstones, they're literally stones that are inside of your gallbladder, and then when you eat and your gallbladder's trying to push that acid into your stomach, a gallstone will get stuck in the bile duct between your gallbladder and your stomach, and the pain is insane. Like the first time I had the pain, I thought I was having a heart attack, because I spoke on 111 and they were saying, do you feel breathless? Is the pain on your, like, between your shoulder blades and up on your back? And I said, yeah. And so an ambulance was sent out for me and all of this. So it's a really horrible thing. They say it's the three things that it's most common in is it's the three Fs. So if you're fat, female, and usually over 40. So that's kind of the main demographic of people that get gallstones.
And you had 2 out of 3.
I had 2 out of 3,
because you were overweight and you were female. But still, and if I'm honest, quite young, Liv, to be suffering from gallstone, and that's what it turned out to be. Yeah. So did you then? Sorry, I'm asking. You tell me.
No,
you tell me.
That's cool. So I went to the doctors after my mum said about that, and they did like an ultrasound, like the jelly on you, feeling around. And they confirmed that it was gallstones. Usually you can just have your gallbladder taken out as an operation. It's like the most common, I'm sure somebody in the hospital said to me once, it's the most common operation in the UK is gallbladder removal, because it's a really common thing that people have. But my limitation was my weight. They said you had to be at a certain BMI to be eligible to have the surgery. So I said, kind of, what do I do in the meantime? I'll work on it, but I'm in so much pain. And it would be, fortnightly, I'd probably have one of these episodes where you're throwing up. The pain is unbearable, and it goes on for like a good few hours each time. And they just gave me painkillers, really strong painkillers, so which do help, but they do really knock you out. So then for the next day after that, you're just like a zombie.
Okay.
So that's still where I'm at now. So that's what was the catalyst for me to start losing weight.
So you've still not been able to have the surgery so far, and you're still suffering with the gallbladder?
Yeah.
Oh, Liv, that's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that.
It's cool. I mean, like I said, it was 2020, towards the end of 2020, that I was kind of diagnosed with them. So I've kind of got used to it now. I mean, with gallstones, there are trigger foods and kind of food groups to know, so you know what to kind of avoid. I think it is marginally different depending on the person, but for me, it's like really spicy foods, really acidic foods like tomato based, and then just fatty foods. And I think that's what caused the gallstones to form in the first place, was just too much fatty food. So as long as you can try and avoid that, you're usually okay. And I mean, now I would say I have like a gallstone flare up probably every few months, like one every few months.
Okay, so you've learned to control it at least, but I can understand why you'd like to remove it, because my mum had her gallbladder removed years ago.
Really?
And I mean, I'm just quoting what you told me now, because I feel really bad saying the 3 Fs, because the last thing I ever want to do is call somebody fat. But you've told me now that if that's what they say is the 3 Fs. And my mum was over 40, she was female, and she was overweight. I can't bring myself to call my mum fat. And I feel bad even when I said it to you that you had 2 out of the 3, because I don't want you to think I'm calling you fat. But, you know, the categories that you gave me, and being overweight and out of a BMI to have surgery, obviously has created a problem for you. But I remember my mum having the flare-ups, and it could be like 3 o'clock in the morning. She'd be like on the floor in pain.
It's
couldn't really do anything. The first time it really happened, like we had to call the doctor out in the middle of the night. And this was going back quite a few years, where there was a night doctor in our town, and the doctor would actually come to the house, and it was like a really weird situation. But yeah, I remember as well when she had the operation, she, for some weird reason, she brought the gallstones home with her, and she was like, she had them in like a little surgical, like this clear plastic pot. I think we were curious to see them. They're like the greeny kind of colour, and she was like, she just like rattle them at me, and I'm like, get them away from me. It's not, I don't want to see that. But that's why it stuck out in my mind so much, because I remember her rattling the gallstones at me. She'll love the fact that I told that story, and but I'm sorry to hear you're still suffering with that. And so this was the catalyst for you to start your journey, and for somebody who'd been suffering from being overweight, for someone who had low self-confidence, and probably, you know, from a mental perspective wasn't in a good place in terms of managing this situation, what did you do first?
Well, so this would have been, obviously 2020 was the year of lockdown. I kind of, obviously it was difficult to kind of know where to start, especially when you have so much to lose. I think that was something that put me off for a long time. It's like, there's too much to lose. I have no idea where to start.
Do you mind if I ask where you started in your journey?
No, I've never said it.
Oh, then you don't have to. I don't want to force you to. I mean, keep that to yourself.
I was over 30 stone.
Okay.
So, you know, it's pretty big.
Congratulations for being braver and saying it, especially if you never said it, because obviously I could see. Yeah. And this is, I guess, one of the new benefits of having camera on, because I could see your reaction when I mentioned it, and I'm sure if I didn't have the camera on, I wouldn't have known how you were feeling. I could see it was uncomfortable, but well
it's
done.
Just, I think as well, when you've always been bigger, it's like saying the number. Nobody says the number, do they? Because they don't want anybody to know. And like, I remember at school, I vividly remember at school, it was like year 4 or something. So how old does that make me? About 8 years old. One of the things they did at school was weigh everybody, and you did it in front of each other. Do you remember that?
I do. I mean, to be fair, I went to school, I was 8 years old a long time before you were. But But I remember, I think it was like the height as well. You were
Yeah,
weighed, and there was like a hearing test as well, if I remember correctly. We were listening to the beeps, and you had to like tap
yeah,
every time you heard them. But yeah, I do. I remember that it
I
was like part of like a school curriculum, probably.
yeah,
Let's weigh everybody, and
yeah. That's UK
shouldn't be
school
allowed to do.
curriculum for you. Yeah, but yeah, I remember that, and obviously that I must have been about 8 years old. So I remember being weighed, and some little kid who was next to me was like, "Oh, you're this much." I don't even remember how much it was, but I think from then I was like, "Oh God, I mustn't tell anyone my weight because it's shocking, and
Wow.
people are going to think differently about me if I say it." So I just never said it, and it was something that I held on to. But I don't mind saying it as much now because I have lost quite a bit of weight. So yeah, it's something that I'm trying to kind of let go of and be like,
Yeah,
no,
no, and power to you for doing that and sharing that now in front of the whole of the Weight Loss Warrior podcast listener crew. But do you know what? Something, if you're going to share it with anyone, you're in a very safe place with the people who listen to
yeah,
this podcast, because I'm sure there's people listening who are currently over 30 stone. There's people who have been 30 stone, and
mm,
like you say, people talk about it. You shouldn't really talk about the number, and it's kind of like the stigma about exactly how much. And again, there's judgment attached to that. I think people fear that judgment that could be attached to that.
mm,
But quite
yeah,
honestly, the person that you were, the person that you're becoming, are two completely different people. And even if
yeah,
you're over 30 stone today, it doesn't define who you are. And I
no,
think the important thing is for you is you're doing something about your life in terms of making positive steps forward, which I think is admirable.
yeah.
So what did you do then in terms of getting that number down in the first instance?
Um, so because I was so much bigger, it literally was a case of at the very beginning, just going for a walk. And that sounds so like cliche, like, oh, just go for a walk. But it really was at the beginning, I, I could control my weight or begin to control my weight through food. And I started on Slimming World.
Mhm.
I did that for about 6 months before I then switched to calorie counting. Um, but so I controlled it with food, but I couldn't do very much at all physically to try and lose this weight to begin with because I really wasn't very mobile. I was carrying so much extra weight on my frame that it really was hard. So even going for, we live right by the beach, being on an island, so I would go for a walk for sort of 5-10 minutes, and that would
Mhm.
be as much as I could possibly do. But I just kept saying to myself, I'll start there, and maybe in a couple of weeks' time I can hit 15 minutes. Maybe after that 20, and it just kind of started from there. But yeah, I would say Slimming World and the kind of just small amounts of exercise. And one thing that I always kind of kept in mind, and I still do now, is with exercising, because I never have enjoyed exercising until recently. I would always just do as much exercise as I felt happy with, because I found before, like family members and stuff, and bless them, they always had good intentions, but they would say, "Oh, let's go out for a walk," or "Let's do this," and they would take me, but they'd take me further than what I was probably not capable of doing. But after I'd be with them, I would be so exhausted and
Mhm.
just feel rubbish and sweaty and gross. And it made it then, when I thought back to exercising, as a horrible negative experience that
Yeah.
made
A
me feel
punishment.
rubbish. Yeah, it was just a negative thing. So every time I've exercised ever since I've started this, I've only done what I felt like I could manage. And if it was 5 minutes along the seafront, then that's what it was. And then I just have gone from there. And that's what I still do now, because I want to keep exercising as a positive thing in my brain,
Amazing.
positive correlation.
Amazing. And I think, but anyone who's listening to this, it's worth rewinding and listening again or taking notes about this, because Liv, honestly, this is such a great way of expressing it. Honestly, it's amazing to hear you say that, because I think so many people will start a journey when they're feeling motivated,
Mm,
and I've done it myself. Like, right, this week I'm going to go to the gym 7 times. I'm going to
yeah.
do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And you can only maintain that pace for a certain amount of time because one, it's not realistic, and two, you end up hating the process that you've created for yourself. And so the
you
fact
just
for you,
resent it.
yeah, exactly. And then you just end up stopping. When the motivation dips, you just stop. And it sounds to me like you are literally creating that new lifestyle in which you can enjoy it, not just for a short period of time, but forever. Like, going for a walk that you enjoy is something that you can do on a regular basis for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But if you feel, oh, now I've got to walk for the next 4 hours just because I'm trying to lose weight, you'll end up hating walking, and you'll end up stopping doing it because, like you said, the aftermath of it, of feeling uncomfortable. And I would imagine as well that if, joints would ache, your knees probably could hurt, your cardio fitness isn't there, so you'd be tired. It's a number of things and reasons why you could learn to hate walking. So, yeah, I think it's amazing the way you've just described that, really. And so you started some exercise. You tried Slimming World for 6 months, or you did Slimming World for 6 months. What made you change? I'm curious to know.
I think.
Oh, Betty's here.
Yeah, Betty
I heard a ring of a collar, and then I just saw a cat's bum. If I'm honest with you. Hi, Betty.
She wanted to feature. Yeah.
There you go.
I never want to put Slimming World down because it's had some amazing results for a lot of people. It wouldn't be so successful if it didn't.
Including a lot of guests on the show.
Exactly.
And listeners. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's massive. Slimming World is huge, and it obviously works for loads of people. It just got to a point for me that after sort of 6 months, it did really the weight loss started to really slow down, and I was really plateauing.
Okay.
I also, the more I lost weight, I kind of tried to look at it more from a nutrition point of view and a nutrition standpoint. And being on Slimming World, and as somebody that loved and loves food, I would see that, pasta, rice is free and as much as you want, and I would run with it. So I think I probably wasn't even using it in the way that it should be used, but seeing that I was just eating so much pasta, so many carbs, because it's like lower fat, and that's kind of the way Slimming World is. But the more I looked into nutrition, I thought this much pasta is probably not that great for me if I'm trying to, according to government guidelines and stuff about a healthy, balanced diet and, everything in moderation. So that's kind of where I made the changes. I got more into my fitness and nutrition, and I thought, right, where I was plateauing as well, I thought I'll give calorie counting a go. I followed a lot of Instagram accounts that were doing that. So I thought, let's just give this a go, and it kind of just went from there.
That's amazing because, you're dropping knowledge bombs tonight, because I think what you've said there about the free foods, and for anyone who's not familiar with Slimming World, there are certain foods that you can eat in quantity, unlimited quantities. And the theory behind it is these foods you can eat and still lose the weight. Now, it's not to say that these foods have no calories, because they do have calories. And the truth is that you can't eat these foods in unlimited quantities and not expect to gain weight, because ultimately they still add to your total calories being eaten in a day. However, with the way the Slimming World works, they take this into account, assuming people are going to have what I would call controlled portions of these types of food. Now, I completely get it, Liv. If you're told you can have as much as you want of this, in your mind it's like, well, bring it on. Bring on the pasta, like the things that
it was a challenge.
And that's what I wanted to ask, because you said that you plateaued. But for me, with my knowledge of calorie tracking, I would assume that you found that you were consuming the same amount of calories as your body was burning, and was perhaps the portions of the free foods a little bit skewed, so that you were actually not losing weight simply because you were eating more than you should have been on the free foods, and so it stopped working. And from what it sounds like, the fact that you went down a nutrition route in terms of educating yourself, I'm sure that you can probably recognize that yourself now when you look back at the beginning of your story.
Yeah.
So you've started following people on Instagram. You started
Yes.
gaining some knowledge on calorie counting.
Mm-hmm.
How, and this is a bit of a loaded question because I've been through it myself, and a lot of people stop calorie counting quite early on because they say it's complicated. How did you adjust to it, and how did you find calorie counting initially?
It is a lot. I would say to begin with, it is a lot. I mean, it was a big adjustment. I mean, you're weighing everything. So, I mean, now I've been doing it for a couple of years. It literally comes like second nature. And if I'm at my mum's house or something and I'm trying to make myself lunch there, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know where the scales are." I'm like, "What the hell?" Because
I can't eat them. That's it.
like, how am I
Lunch is
supposed
ruined.
to weigh this? Yeah. So it does become second nature, but to begin with, it is it does feel like, oh God, this is so much work and it's time consuming, but it does become just second nature, and it becomes so much easier, I would say. But yeah,
do you still
it was
weigh
a
all
big
your
adjustment.
food now? All of your meals?
Yeah, literally everything.
Some people kind of go between, some people stop weighing it because they get a good eye for their portions, and then they just every now and again give themselves a little test and start weighing stuff. I've talked about this before, that for me, my Achilles heel is mozzarella cheese, because I'll get a bag of mozzarella and I'll start sprinkling it on, but yeah, that looks like 30 grams, a little bit more. Now it's 30, and I weigh it and it's like 60 grams, just because I love cheese that much. But the fact that you still weigh all the time, I think is good. It's dedication, but I can completely relate with what you're saying about it takes time initially, because I would disappear into the kitchen to make a meal, and I'd be gone for like an hour and a half, and my wife would be like, "What are you cooking in here?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just weighing this." Like, oh, take a grain of rice out, put a grain of rice into it, and you don't have to be as exact, but you can be within a few grams, but you do have to have some discipline there to do it.
Definitely.
And I don't want people to hear this and feel discouraged by it, because I honestly believe that initial learning curve, although it's quite a high curve that you go up to begin with in terms of adjusting to it, the service that it gives you in terms of leading a healthier lifestyle, I think is worth it. The benefit is there.
And I just think being conscious, I mean, there's one thing that sticks out, and I'm sure my best friend Molly won't mind mentioning it, but when
now we've said her name, Molly, so we know it's definitely Molly this happened. Okay.
Hi, Molly.
Sorry, Molly.
Yeah, when I first went over to calorie counting, for sort of a regular pasta dinner dish, I would, and I still do, have like 75 grams weighed out of dry pasta. So I weigh it when it's dry before I boil it. And Molly and I said, shall we measure, or shall we put in the pan just to see how much we would put in regularly if we weren't counting it, just to see how much we would actually put in, and then weigh it. So we did that, and it was 200 grams per person that we were putting in. And I was like, oh my God, that's like way over, double of what I should be putting in. So,
of course. But this goes back to exactly what we were just saying about portion control and foods that are free. There's still consequences.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've done as well, where like you eyeball something, like you just get into the habit of making something, and you think, wow, I wonder what actually the impact is, how many calories that is, and sometimes it's shocking, like the amount of like salad dressing I'd put on a salad or something, like literally drown it in it, and then realize that dressing alone was like 400 calories of my healthy salad. So the education and learning that this brings, and awareness this gives you, I think is amazing. And this is why I'm such a big fan of calorie counting, because it completely opens your eyes to really how you feel your body. And some of the things that you consider healthy or are led to believe that are healthy, and you're making good choices, are just completely false. And this is, I think, why in the world there is such a problem with obesity, because it's misinformation and people are not educated properly in how to manage their diet, which I hope changes.
Yeah, and, me too.
If they don't change it, we'll change the world.
Yeah.
So it sounds as though that you managed to get your head around calorie counting and your journey began. And did you notice that the weight started to come off again after your plateau?
Yeah, big time. It was like you know, when you start trying to lose weight and you have that first week where you lose a crazy amount, like
Mhm.
8-9 pounds or something in a week. That happened on my first week from Slimming World over to calorie counting. I remember losing a lot, which then obviously gives you a huge boost to carry on with it. And I think I thrive on the control. That
Mhm.
makes me sound crazy, but I
No.
think I like, you know, controlling everything. So controlling it just something clicks. It hits a good point in my brain of being able to control exactly by, you know, by weighing everything out how much I'm eating. And I think that's another reason why it works so well for me. I think different things work for different people, and I understand with Slim and World why people like the more flexibility of it,
Mhm.
in terms of free foods and things like that. But yeah, for me, it was just that control of, I just felt more in control. You know,
Yeah.
when I was at my biggest, I felt so out of control.
And
So
this was just what I wanted to ask you as well, because I was my actual question was going to be, how many years of your life did you feel that you weren't in control of your diet or or just your life in general because you were being ruled by your weight?
yeah, ever since before I started calorie counting, so you know, 20-25
Mhm.
years, I would say. 24-25 years, it's always been something out of my control. I mean, obviously when you're a kid, you're not supplying your own food, your parents do. And I love my mum to bits, but one of her love languages is definitely feeding. She's a feeder. So
Mhm.
I had that as a kid, but then obviously as soon as I hit a teenager, I was responsible for my own food, and that was definitely, I was out of control with that, you know, just fast food all the time. Being having my own car and driving, it was just something that I would do, and a lot of the time it would be in secret as well. You know, you hear of the secret eaters. I would go get, you know, some sort of meal from McDonald's, KFC, whatever it was, and sit and eat it in the car park on my own, like
Yeah.
just because it was like this instant gratification. Afterwards, you feel horrendous,
Yeah.
and mentally and physically, but at the time, it's just, I was so out of control, and that's all I could think about. So I think that's one of the main sort of things that I love so much about calorie counts, is that I have now gained control, and I feel like I am in control of mind and body. So my weight loss, but also my mind, and I'm more headstrong, and I'm more, if I can't be motivated, be disciplined. That's a big thing that I've tried to keep in my head, because I just had no discipline on myself beforehand.
No. But it sounds like you've really made a lot of progress there, and having that control
Mm,
has obviously helped you achieve losing over 8 stone, which is
yeah,
incredible. And tell me
thank
about
you.
some of those benefits of doing that, how you're feeling now as part, of this stage in your journey.
Oh, there's just so much, and like for anyone that's even considering losing weight, like there are so many positives that you can't even imagine now that will come with doing that. I mean, like I said before, the confidence that it's given me of being able to achieve what I thought was just impossible.
Hmm.
Um, it's given me so much confidence, and it's not something that you notice overnight. It's when you see people you've not seen for a while, and they'll say, "Wow, you just look so much happier." You know, not just you look like you've lost weight, you look happier. So I'm definitely happier in general as well. Um, just understanding my body more, it's helped in that way of, like, you know, natural cues of when I'm full and when I am actually hungry, or am I just bored or thirsty.
Hmm.
That's a big thing. And just being more active, and being able to go for a walk with Jimmy, or you know, whatever I want to do, just being more active in general, and keeping up with my other friends who are slimmer. um there's just so much. I could go on forever about all of the benefits. I'm just genuinely happier, more confident. I'm able to be more active and actually live my life as a 20 something that I felt like I always wanted to do, go
That's
out with my
amazing.
friends and go dancing, or, go down the beach, go for a walk, take the dog out. I went on holiday last year and I didn't worry about plane seats or what are the restaurant seats going to be like, just all things like that. It's just,
Of course.
there's so much that it brings.
And it's not just the confidence that's come with it. It's the fact that we talked before about your fitness level, your ability to walk further, your ability to go out. It's not
Yeah.
just about how you feel from a mindset perspective, although it's very, very important. Just the physicality of being able to move around and being more mobile, having lost as much weight as you have. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Liv, because a lot of what you've talked about in terms of mindset, gaining control, your journey of binge eating previously, and from what I understand, you've managed to leave that behind. I don't know if that's something that still comes back every now and again, but what have you done to be able to achieve that in terms of improving your mindset?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like a lot of it has come naturally with losing weight. It was kind of like a ball. Once the ball was rolling,
Mm-hmm.
and I was seeing the weight, like when I was seeing myself lose weight, it just then escalated from that, because I wanted to take it further and I wanted to, improve with it. So it's hard to say. I don't know what it was really that had just clicked. I do think it's true when they say, to lose weight, something just has to click, and then it kind of, your mindset just completely shifts. And it was kind of that. I think just starting, whatever point you're at, just start. Like, don't think it's so far away, because one day it won't be that far away. Realistically, I need to lose another around 4 stone to have this surgery. But a couple of years ago, it was 12 stone, So it's like just starting, just doing that first little step, even if it's a 5-minute walk down the beach. And even that in itself, if you achieve that, makes you feel amazing. And that's what makes your mindset click to then think, right, let's do 10 minutes, let's see how far I can do this. So I think that was it for me, is literally just starting, because all the time I was doing nothing, I just felt awful. So,
And belief as well. It just sounds like you gained self-belief by proving to yourself that you could do it. And that, like you mentioned, the ball rolling, gaining that momentum, that with every small win, it forms this bigger win as part of your journey. And then, like you said, 8 stones gone, you've got another 4 stone to go. But before that was 12 stone. And at day 1, I'm sure it was probably impossible for you to imagine having lost 8 stone.
Yeah.
It's incredible, really, what you've done. And in terms of now getting closer to your goal, and again, another loaded question, because I saw a post that you put on Instagram recently about the fact that you've kind of, your weight loss has kind of slowed down a little bit more recently. And I wanted to ask you about that, if I could, Liv, because I'm just curious to know what you feel has caused your weight loss to slow down, and also what you're doing in terms of getting back on track with that.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like it has slowed down. I mean, it's really slowed down. I do think a big part of it is because, and this sounds really stuck up, but I do now regularly see people and they're like, "Oh my God, you look so good. You've lost so much." Da 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 da. Because I have obviously lost quite a bit already so far.
Hell of
So
a
I
lot.
think every time somebody says that, you think, "Oh yeah." I think it sets a little thing in your head, like, "Yeah, you've done good." Like, you can kind of relax a bit now.
You're
So
getting that reward, the dopamine hit, you get the gratification, you get the validation.
Exactly that. So now I've got that, I'm kind of just plodding along.
Okay.
And I think also I was doing things like that may seem like simple things, but even like joining the gym, that was a huge achievement for me, because like I said before, I was like terrified of a gym.
Mhm.
So once I had done that and I was going to the gym, I was thinking, well, what more can I do now? I'm eating in a calorie deficit. I'm going to the gym regularly. So I've kind of got to this point where I'm like, what now?
Mhm.
I think what I'm trying to do now is, first of all, up the amount of times I go to the gym, because it was very on and off.
Right.
I'd
Okay.
go for like a few times one week and then maybe once the next week, and then the week after I wouldn't go at all, and things like that.
Mhm.
So I've told myself I'm gonna, take 3 sessions, for example, a week, and I'm going to go and do that, because not only is it going to help my weight loss, but it makes me feel so good. And it's time for myself. It's time away from the crazy dog that we've got. So it's good to, get out and do that. And other than that, it's smaller things like, I can go at a certain pace and a certain incline on the treadmill at the gym. So now I'm going to try and go at a higher incline and a higher pace, a faster pace. I'm going to try and lift larger weights. I'm going to try out different weights in the weight room, because when I first started the gym, I learned how to do, I don't know, 4 different weight
Mhm.
machines in the gym room, in the weights room, sorry. So then I got comfortable with that, because that was an achievement. So it's like, what's the next thing is, oh, I should, try out some different weights, things like that. I think so. It's just a combination of that. And I think also something that I did, or something that I've started doing recently versus sort of a year ago, is, say if I would go around somebody's house and they would be offering biscuits or a cake or whatever.
Mhm.
This time last year, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. It's not within my calorie deficit. I've not accounted for it. I can't weigh it, so I don't know how many calories are in it. So I'm just not going to have it, because I'm in my own lane and I want to, I've got what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
And I feel as more this year, I've been kind of like, what's one piece of cake, like, I've lost 8 stone, I'm just going to have the piece of cake, which by all means have the piece of cake. But when you're doing that all of the time, every time you're around someone's house and they're offering you something, it's going to affect your weight loss.
Of course.
So it's things like that. It's just getting complacent, I think, is
Mhm.
what it's been. So
And
that's something that I'm trying to work on.
of course, and I think as well, when you've been on a journey for a long time, there's almost that feeling of like, I need a break from it. I need to
Yeah.
get it. And I completely understand the complacency that you've mentioned, because
Yeah.
this year I've done exactly the same thing. Like I went from really finding it easy to lose weight, controlling my calories, being within 50 calories every single day of everything, and
Yeah.
then trying to gain weight in the gym. All of a sudden it was like a free pass. It was like, well, Carl, you need to be in a surplus now. But I needed to be in like
Mhm.
200 or 300 calorie surplus a day. But I was like, I can have an extra beer tonight, because before I wasn't even drinking. And it's like, no, I can have a beer, I can have an extra bit of this, I can eat this, because I need to be in a surplus. And all that was happening, I
Yeah.
was gaining fat and not really controlling my calories. And I think that from what you've described, I was interested to know, because again, I'm very much, from everything I've learned, very much in a school of thought that either you need to increase your exercise or decrease your calories. It's
Mhm.
as simple as that. The
It
actual
is.
doing it is not simple. I don't want to take
No.
anything away from that or say that that's easy, because it's not. But the actual science behind it is quite simple. So I wanted to find out from you if perhaps there are things you can do in terms of controlling that calorie deficit, maybe increase the deficit, maybe be a bit stricter with it. And I mean,
Mhm.
you alluded to it yourself just now. And also the other thing, if I could offer, and if I'm completely wrong, just tell me, but from what I heard you say, everybody else has given you a lot of validation and noticed, how great you're looking and how much happier you look because you've lost
Mm.
weight. But at the beginning, when you started your journey, you didn't have any of that validation. You didn't have
No.
anybody telling you these positive things. And
No.
so you had to do it for yourself and really focus on your why and the reasons that you were doing it only for you.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that you could look at in terms, or maybe are looking at the moment, that if you strip away all of those compliments, if you strip away all the confidence you're getting from other people, and really concentrate on your own journey again, and why you want to get that extra 4 stone, why you want to continue on your journey, you might find that fall in love with the journey again for yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because it's true. I think I've been very much just taken in the compliments from everyone, and
you
people
should. You should enjoy that.
Yeah, and I mean, people who follow my page are so lovely, and I get so many lovely comments. But it is, if I do strip away all of that, it is just me. And like when I think of things now, I try and think of, if I'm out and somebody's offering me something, I don't know, any piece of food that I've not kind of accounted for and is not within this plan that I've set out for myself, I try and think now, like if I eat that, you see it, and you probably do as well with the beer. You see it's like, oh, it's just cheeky, like it doesn't matter. But realistically, I try and think you are only cheating yourself. Like
100%. It's a Saturday.
At the end of the
This is my worst one. It's Saturday.
Yeah.
My body doesn't give a if it's Saturday. Calories are calories.
And you go home and okay, you eat that piece of cake with your friends and whatever, but you go home and you get in bed and it is just you. So like they're not going to think twice about that piece of cake you've had, but you will, and your body, it will be inside of your body, nobody else's. So
of course, that's
the thing I try and think of is you're only mugging yourself off. It might be a very Kent thing to say, but you are only mugging yourself off.
It made me feel very Essex for a second as well. That's brilliant. But yeah, you're right. You're mugging yourself off.
Yeah. And that's what I try and think about. Maybe I should put that on my fridge or something. You're just mugging yourself off. I
think that's brilliant. But I think I wouldn't allow yourself to get into the mindset either that you're just constantly mugging yourself off, because you're not. But I just think it's very easy to kind of lose sight or lose focus of your own journey when there's all this noise around you telling you you've ultimately already succeeded. When if you're not where you want to be just yet, then you've still got a few more legs to go in the journey before you can say you've fully succeeded. So, I mean, never take a moment away from what you have achieved, but at the same time, probably maybe not hang on to that 8 stone achievement too hard, because it could even prevent you going further forward, maybe.
Yeah, that's how I think, that's how I've been feeling. And I think I do need a kind of rewire, restart. I even might do a mind map. It's pretty old school. It's pretty school times.
Literally,
but I might do one.
I've got a book right here next to me, and I could show you mind maps that I do. There's an amazing book, actually, I'd say, called The Kindness Method. The Kindness Method. It's a book that actually takes you through drawing different mind maps to help you with your own journey. And it starts off with things like things that make you happy, things that you're proud of, things that you want to achieve. And the book gives you different levels of mindfulness, but guides you through ways of being kind to yourself. It's an amazing book. I've got it.
Wow.
Just here. It's by Sharu Isadi. She's got, sorry, for anyone who's listening to the podcast, I'm now showing the book on the screen. Evidence number 34268. Oh, I've just hit a wire. Okay, I'm back.
Cool.
But this book's amazing, and I discovered Sharu on the Stephen Bartlett Diary of a CEO podcast. It was just incredible. She's a lady who's gone through her own journey of being overweight, having a very unhealthy relationship with food, figured it out for herself, and she has written an amazing book about it. So I'll send you the details to that after the episode.
Yeah,
because,
please do.
You mentioned a mind map, and that sprung to mind. We're running very low on time, unfortunately, Liv. It's been an amazing conversation, to be honest with you. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Me too.
You've done some amazing things, and I just feel like in a year's time we're going to have you back on the show to talk about everything else you've achieved, because I have a feeling there's more to come.
That would be a bit of motivation for me as well. So
there you go. We'll book it in after the call. We'll book it in. We'll get a date sorted.
All right.
Where can everybody else follow you on your journey? Where can they go?
Oh God, I've forgotten my own Instagram username. Calorie Counting with Liv.
There you go. That's right. I'll put the link in there. It sounds about right. I'll put the link there. Don't worry.
I'll go with that.
I don't think, honestly, I say this on every episode, but I think people will look at the link rather than sitting there with pen and paper ready to write it down as soon as they hear it.
Please look at the link. Yeah.
Yeah. And I should have written it down myself, but yeah, I think that's pretty much right. Counter Calorie with Liv. I'll put a link in there.
Thanks.
You've given a lot of advice already, you know, just getting started being, I think, the main one. But is there anything else that you wanted to share? Is there anything else that you would encourage people with in terms of going on their own journey?
I would say make sure you've got the right tools at hand. So things like, personally, I use the NutriCheck app. So get that downloaded, or whatever you use. I know there's MyFitnessPal, or get some sort of tool downloaded so that you can try and track. If it is calorie counting you go for, that's the only one I can really speak on. But get an app like that, even if for a couple of weeks you don't actively try and eat less, even if you just track what you eat normally on a day-to-day, so you can be more aware of what you're eating and go from there. I would say do that. Definitely a community around you. If it's your friends, family, I found it with friends and family as well, but the Instagram page has been just so great for me. It's like my own little diary, like a modern diary of just going on there, just talking to other people who are in similar situations to you. You might not see somebody who's in a similar boat that lives down the road from you, but online you will. Like, there will always be someone in a similar situation to you. So I would say, yeah, people around you, the right tools, and just a bit of self-belief. Like, just start. Just start, whatever it is, like the smallest thing, and praise yourself for it, whatever it is.
I think it's fantastic, Liv. I think absolutely amazing, and thank you so much for joining me. In terms of community, you're absolutely right. It is important, and strangely enough, I've found that I find it much easier to be honest with my feelings about my own journey on social media with complete strangers than I do having a conversation with my mates. And again, 100%. I think it's fear of judgment. Again, this self-limiting belief that if I tell my friends about how I really feel, they're going to judge me for it or act differently and be weird around me. But people I've never really spoken to or met before, I go on a story and telling people, you know, I've had a bad day and explain why. And it is important. Yeah. I'd absolutely love if you join and you're part of the Weight Loss Warrior Tribe community on Facebook. And for anyone who's listening or watching, it's completely free to be a member of it. And the community there is growing literally by the day, where people, in the same way as on Instagram, are helping each other, supporting each other, sharing wins together. It's turning into like a really nice, tight-knit little family of people looking out for each other. So it'd be amazing to see you in there as well. And for anyone who's listening, just look for Weight Loss Warrior Podcast group on Facebook, or there'll be a link next to Liv's Instagram account once we've fact-checked her actual name to make sure it's factually correct. Yeah. And anyway, Liv, thank you so much for being our latest weight loss warrior.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. You're very welcome, and we'll speak soon, okay?
Yes, this time next year.
Perfect. Look forward to it. Right. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.